What's up, guys? This is Rey-Jay back with another video. And this one I want to break down what's happening with the overall market and answer the question, can we bounce if we get some good news? Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. Anyways, as far as the market's going, we start off in this range right over here. So if SPY loses 619, we could be looking for a dip back down towards the low of the day yesterday, if not below. But if we could break and hold above 622, we're looking for an attempt to bounce. If the QQQ also breaks its resistance around 554, we're also going to be looking for an attempt to fill this gap for a bounce. So the question is, can the market bounce, or is the market going to continue to reject? This depends on some news and what happens with what President Trump is about to announce. Now, keep in mind, today is Tuesday, July 8th, 2025. We just got business optimism, which is very close to expectations. Now we have the consumer inflationary expectations at 11 o'clock a.m., then some notes and bill auctions at 11:30 and 1 p.m. So keep that in mind. May cause a little bit of volatility here and there, but for the most part, it's not too crazy. Now, China has issued a warning for the US because they're telling us that if countries form deals with the US and they exclude China from their supply chains, they're going to retaliate. So keep that in mind. That's very, very important. They also believe that President Trump's tariffs are, an amount of bullying. That's how they kind of described it. But if anything, we're just going to have to see what happens with potential deals that are still being negotiated. Even in China, is still negotiating with the U.S. on more parts of their deals. Obviously, it happens in parts. It's not like they come up with everything overnight, and that's one of the things that we heard from our Treasury Secretary. Now, the reason why I think the market's bouncing is because, President Trump had been announcing these new tariff rates ranging from 25% to 40% after sending letters to dozens of countries. However, what's helping the market bounce is there's been a lot of talk about how the US is getting very close to forming lots of deals. So far we have our Treasury Secretary, Bessent, who's telling us that we're getting very, very close to some big announcements either today or tomorrow, and that they're very close to an India deal, and there could be a lot of deals coming. And that is, once again, a little bit more optimistic for the market. We also have Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary of the US, saying the exact same thing, that there's going to be a lot of deals coming, especially with India, and that could be very, very big. So that is some very, very important news. I think that's the tariff fears. A lot of that has been priced in unless President Trump starts to announce more of them. So far, this is what they look like. We're looking for some blanket tariffs, and they could be starting as soon as August 1st, as President Trump signed another executive order. You have 25% tariffs on Japan, South Korea, and etc., but they could still negotiate some deals. South Africa and many other countries have 30% tariffs, and you have other countries facing 40% tariffs if they don't come up with any sort of deals. So if President Trump comes out and he starts announcing more tariffs on Europe, on other countries, if Taiwan gets involved, Thailand, and the list goes on, that could be a little bit more bearish for markets. However, if he doesn't really announce too much more about higher tariffs on more countries, and instead we get lots of deals, a deal with India, a deal with Japan, a deal with Taiwan, maybe a deal with the EU, because there's news coming out that the European Union is trying to strike a deal with 10% tariffs. That could also be bullish for the markets. If we get some very, very big deals, that could help the market balance at least to some extent. So that's going to be very important for how we end up moving. So keep that in mind. That's going to be very, very key. So we're going to see what ends up happening. Will we end up getting some kind of balance if we get some big deals, or does President Trump announce more of these tariffs? For now, the market's becoming a little bit more optimistic about this. So we'll see how it ends up going. Besides that, I'm not seeing anything else that's too crazy. So as far as the market goes, it depends on the levels. So if SPY fails and it ends up losing basically 619, we're looking for a dump back down to 618, or if not 616. But if we're bullish, you want to see SPY hold above 622. If we break and hold 622, I think we could be going back up towards all-time highs for another push back up if we could break and hold above 622. That's very close to where we rejected yesterday. We did try to get back above that. If we get back above that, we're looking for this high right here to be taken out. So I anticipate that, we're still technically on an uptrend, making higher highs and higher lows. Now, we could lose 619 to turn bearish, but as of right now, there's no confirmation of that. And it depends on what President Trump says, right? If he gives us bad news about anything, if we get a lot more tariffs to be announced, that could still cause us to dip lower like we were talking about yesterday. But now all this news about how there's deals that could be coming do give us more hope for upside. So I think we're in a range right now. We're basically in this range. but there is still hope that we might try to push a bit higher if we could break and hold 622 if we get a big deal with India or something like that. The QQQ is looking a bit more resilient. Now, there are two gaps. There's one above and one below. If we lose 551, I think we could be dipping closer to the lows we saw before. So we could be dipping back down towards 549 to 548 in case we get a rejection. If we're bullish, however, we could be trying to break 555. If that breaks, we have a gap to pull back up to about this resistance. As of right now, the trend favors that we're bouncing off the green support, and that could actually take us all the way up towards 555 or above. So I think the odds are going to be favoring, once again, the upside. There might be some consolidation between 554 and basically 551. But then as time goes on, this might try to push to fill that gap for 555. So I see some potential in the QQQ. For the IWM, we need to see it basically fail at 219. If 219 fails us, we could be dipping back down towards the 217 area. But if we could hold above 219, then we're looking for an attempt to push for 222. My gut tells me that 222 is going to be tested, and then it could try to rebound the closer we get to that level. So that is what's happening so far. But we have to see if we could hold some key levels just for confirmation. So make sure you watch your levels very closely. As long as we're above our key supports, we could be looking for an attempt to push back up towards the 222 area. So please keep that in mind, especially as time progresses. For other tickers out there, we also happen to have ES. Now, ES is trying a rebound, but it depends. Now, if we reject and we don't hold 62.70, we could turn back down to the lows. But as long as we're above that, we're actually favoring consolidation and a slow push towards this imbalance, taking us up to 6,300. We're going to see if it rejects or not off of that. But there is still potential for it to bounce a bit. NQ is trying to rebound. Now, it depends. Can we hold above 22,850? If we lose that, this could turn right back down if we get bad news. But as of right now, there's a lot of hope about these deals that could push us towards 23,000 or so. So there could be some upside. Bitcoin, as long as we don't lose 108,000, we're actually favoring consolidation and an attempt for 109,500. For Tesla, we're looking for an attempt for basically 300. We're going to see if it breaks or not. Now, if we reject off 300, we could turn back down, but I do think Tesla might test 300. And we're going to see if we could try to break this to push back up to 306. If it can't break, then it's just going to continue to consolidates between 290 and 300. I say this because, the downside move we got after Elon Musk announced his new political party is coming, that is a little bit exaggerated. You could argue that. We'll see if we could break and hold 300. If not, we consolidate, and we'll see if we go up or down, but otherwise we're just going to be range bound for now. On Nvda, we look bullish unless we end up losing 157 to dump back down. We're making higher highs and higher lows, and we're favoring 161. On Appl, we look bullish. As long as we're above 209, we're favoring basically 212 plus. If we lose 208, though, we could be dumping to 206. As of right now, we're favoring upside and a push for the 212s or above. For AMD, we're looking bullish. We're making higher lows here. If we break basically 138, we're looking for the 140s. But if we lose 135, we're looking for a dump. As of right now, we have a bullish divergence. This may be pushing for 140. We're just consolidating right now in this range, but there could be a small bounce if that breaks. Coinbase is looking more bullish. We were talking about this inverse head and shoulders here. If we lose 353, we could be dumping back down towards 348. As long as we're above 353, we're actually favoring consolidation, a slow push for 365 or above. For Amazon, we look bullish. If we end up losing 222, we're looking for a dump. But as of right now, we're favoring 225 or above to push higher. Meta is looking more bullish, favoring 730 or above, as long as you don't lose 714. Google is kind of consolidating here, but it might be pushing for 180 plus, so give that some time. And Microsoft is on an uptrend, so long as you don't lose 495. We're favoring the 500s, like 501 plus. It looks very, very probable. Now, the VIX is rejecting. Unless this gets back above like 17.5 to bounce, it also has a gap to fill back down to like 16.3. So either it's going to be, bouncing to fill this gap, which would be bearish, or it continues to dump, which would be bullish for the market. This might dip to fill this gap. We'll see, though. It also depends on what's announced. If we get an India deal, whatever happens, that's going to be very key. So whatever happens. The market's kind of consolidating right now. It could go either way. Like I said, if SPY loses 619, I will turn more bearish. But if we break 622, we're more bullish. So we're going to see, can we see some kind of bounce to 622 plus? If we break and hold 622, we could bounce more, but it all depends on what President Trump ends up saying. So get ready for some big announcements. We have a very important political figures who are telling us there's going to be some big deals coming. So be ready for some volatility and we'll see how it goes. Anyways, that's it for this one, guys. I thank you all so much for listening. Have a good one and peace out.